Haven't we always pointed our fingers and villainized men when it came to the topic of patriarchy? The last few weeks, in fact months, have given me the chance to reflect on the very same and ask myself this question. What if the real enforcers of patriarchy in our country, in India especially, are not really the men, but maybe the women? Our grandmothers, our colleagues, our neighbors, our aunties, our mothers, for that matter, mothers in law. Maybe we need to really reflect and uncover the truth behind who's perpetuating the idea of patriarchy. Where it comes from is another question, but why does the system continue to exist in 2025 is the question. Why am I here talking about this, topic of who perpetuates patriarchy and who enables and enforces it? Has a very quick, short anecdote behind it. I've always been a big fan of reading books. I don't remember. I think since I was a kid, I would hide myself under the blankets and read books. It was one of my absolute favorite hobbies. But for the past year and a half, I sort of, lost touch. But I picked it up again. And at the cost of sounding like an absolute insomniac, maniac for that matter, I think I've read 3 to 4 books parallelly in the last 2 months alone, all of which are right here. Um, they've majorly ranged from mythology, spirituality, and a lot on psychology, which is why I think, a mix of all of these, not just reading it, but discussing it in book circles, reflecting on what each book has taught me. I've always loved journaling and writing and, highlighting what every book has taught me, has sort of led me to this very topic of, questioning in my mind why the system still exists, because it definitely does if you're trying to, you know, uh, turn a blind eye to whether patriarchy exists or not, then you're lying to yourselves. And the angle of all three, topics or subdomains that I just talked about has sort of led me here. And along with all of this has been my personal experiences and interactions with a lot of people over the last few weeks. We all know patriarchy in very simple terms to be a concept where men hold power. But its roots run really deep. I'm not talking about where it started, how it started. What I'm talking about right now is why it still exists. And it exists in our daily lives, it exists in our daily habits, our daily acts. And the plot twist is women play an absolutely active part in maintaining this system. In fact, they are gatekeepers of this system. And it just reminds me of this very hard hitting, very profound quote by Alankita Srivastav. She's the creator of Bombay Bacons. She said, and I quote, "Women carry a lot of internalized patriarchy. Women have been trained to be watchdogs of patriarchy. Our societal structures have made women feel so isolated that all they want to do is self preserve. And they might feel that giving a helping hand to another woman will diminish their own power." She said, I quote, I reflect, extremely profound. But what does it mean? What does it really mean? What she's trying to say is, and I think what I've also realized with my personal experiences, has been the concept of internalized patriarchy. The idea that women are raised in this society, they grow up absorbing, reflecting, and over time reinforcing the very values, a lot of them unconsciously, but unfortunately, a lot of them consciously. Having seen it, having lived it, and especially with absolute cognizance over the past few weeks and months, I can definitely say that my realization that we may have slowly, very slowly, may have moved towards equality in the public space, but the very idea of patriarchy, the pressure it puts on women, still exists within the four walls. And by four walls, I do not mean just your house, your home where you reside, but it could also mean where you work. It could also mean the four walls of a restaurant where you're hanging out with your friends and these conversations take place. And I can say it with absolute confidence that there's a common denominator to all of these experiences. And the common denominator has been so painful to take cognizance of or to, accept as reality. But this is what it is. The common denominator is that the women, or the woman, for that example, let's just take one, who's gone through the worst experience of her life because of patriarchal norms, the woman who has suffered the most due to it, always, always ends up becoming the one who perpetuates the very pain to the next generations. If the cycle doesn't break, then what happens to it? Well, the cycle adapts itself, it reinvents itself, it gets packaged differently, but the pain is still the same. Wives may continue the age old patriarchal traditions in their in law's house. Mothers may pass on certain judgments onto their daughters, knowingly or unknowingly. Mothers in law package the same old pain, but in a different way to their daughters in law. They all might feel that they're not perpetuating what happened with them. They might try to change it, but what everybody forgets is that what they had to suffer from and had to deal with may look very different today, but they're finding ways, they're finding those cracks in the system, but somehow passing on the same pain and not really challenging the cycle or breaking it at some point in time. For example, like very easy examples, today's pain of a married woman may not look like cooking the house or cleaning. You've got help for it, but it may look so much different, but equally or more painful, such as not being able to speak your heart out, not being able to follow your tradition, your own traditions that you'd like to follow, what you've grown up with, because suddenly you're expected to live in a very different manner. You might be expected to, drop down all your ambitions that you've grown up living with. Um, it may also look like not speaking your mind out, being docile, being asked to stay quiet, which is slow death for a lot of people. And and also at work, it may look very, very different. It may not look like that you're competing with 100 men, because you might have equal amount of female colleagues at work. And of course, we're having this conversation with the binary gender in mind. But at work, it may look like harder goalposts, doing the same thing while also managing things at your home. So those things also change. But is this scenario, are we supposed to just accept that it's happening with us at work, at home? Does it not change? I'd like to be absolutely optimistic over here. I don't even want to be a realist. While all of this exists, I also really feel that there has to be one woman in 100, if not in 100 and 1,000, who recognizes these patterns, who reflects on how they might not be doing the same thing, but they're carrying on the age old patriarchal norms and traditions in different ways, and how they're doing it consciously, how they're doing it subconsciously, and a lot of them unconsciously. And it's when that woman who could be a mother, who could be a mother in law, who could be a boss, reflects on these things, accepts that, change is required, and actively participates towards breaking that cycle, can we see any change? Uh, but like I said, I'm absolutely optimistic. I have, if not a lot, a few examples in my own vicinity, at my own workplace, in my own friend circle, where there have been certain women who've taken the charge of ensuring that what they've had to go through, the others don't. Unfortunately, the number of women who consciously, unconsciously perpetuate the very same system and become denominators in carrying all this unfortunate legacy of traditional pains seem to outweigh the ones who are trying to bring about a change. But still, I think having this conversation, actively pointing it out, putting a spotlight on how and where it goes wrong is what's very, very important. And while I'm saying all of this, I think spotlighting women and saying that they carry on this tradition does not absolve men of their responsibility when it comes to all of this. Collective introspection, recognition, empathy, and most importantly, acceptance that it's actually happening around you, or you're the reason why it's happening, is where the first step starts. And after that is just a matter of putting your heart and soul to finding ways of changing it. Definitely for women, but also for men. Otherwise, your wives, your sisters, your friends, that's the people who end up paying the price for it if you don't take an active step towards stopping something that you can easily recognize. I think the change does not happen overnight. The change happens slowly, and it all starts by first recognizing it, accepting it and not turning a blind eye towards it, and then actively finding ways to change it. And that's about it.